I would like to call the meeting to order. This is the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, April 25th. You guys can believe it. It's the last Monday in April. We'll do a quick roll call. Joe?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Paula?
Here.
Zach?
Present.
Oh, Steve?
Here.
Kevin Bugay?
Here.
Ben Snyder?
Here.
Bonnie, I know, is absent. Elena, I know, is absent. Sent a message to our new member, Jeffrey Moynihan. I have no idea. And I believe that's everyone.
All right. So if we could start with the reserve fund transfers, we have 4 requests tonight. First request is from the Select Board's office, and this is for $1,100. And this is to, we've got an FMLA leave coming up, and this would cover the meetings, to do the meeting minutes while that person is out for the rest of the year.
Okay. Would anyone like to ask a question about the reserve fund transfers?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, I'm just curious, family medical leave, is that pay with pay or without pay? And if it's without, can't we just use what was budgeted?
It's without pay, but the person has sick time and vacation time and personal time that they can use. So they will be getting paid.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions on this one? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer. You're going to have to, whoever moves it is going to have to read the account that it's going to and the amount. Correct, Mike?
Correct. And want me to just to say it? Okay.
Go ahead, Bill.
I recommend we transfer $1,100 to account 001-122-510-5116.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for this reserve fund transfer to account 001-122-510-5116. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kevin Bugay?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Kevin Snyder?
Yes.
And I too am a yes, so that is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The second request is for $5,500, and this would be transferred to part-time wages in the data processing department. The position was budgeted for 20 hours, and we used CARES funds until that ended, and it's 24 hours. This would allow 24 hours a week to the end of the year. This position with all the Zoom meetings and everything else has been taking on more hours. So this would allow us to continue it at 24 hours to the end of the year.
And Mike, can you refresh my memory? Is it funded at 24 hours a week for next year already?
It is, yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions on this reserve fund transfer?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Zach.
are we transferring these funds from the FinCom reserve?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Just,
other questions?
just in case anyone's wondering, the FinCom reserve started with 150,000, and you haven't transferred anything out yet until tonight.
Okay. I was going to ask at the end what was left.
At the end, you'll have $92,400 if you do all these.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions on this data processing transfer request? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve this request.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
I recommend we fund $5,500 from the FinCom reserve to account 001-155-510-5116.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, we'll go straight to the vote. Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kevin Bouguet?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Kevin Snyder?
Yes.
And I too am a yes, so that is unanimous. All
Okay.
right, the next request.
This is from the fire department for repair maintenance of vehicles. There's minus 11,000 in the account right now, and they're requesting $26,000. And I know the chief, I believe, is on and can explain. They've had some repairs this year. They had a vehicle that failed inspection, and they are going to need another $15,000 in repairs.
Yeah, Mike, that pretty much you pretty much summed it up pretty good there. We're about $11,000 in deficit in that line right now. Just last month we had to pay out about $23,000 in repairs due to one of our engines failing state inspection for major chassis and suspension issues. So we estimate we're going to need about $15,000 to finish the year due to mandated testing and preventative maintenance. So that's what we're requesting.
Does anyone have any questions for the chief? Can I stop right now?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Steve.
Chief, I'm just curious, what's the age of the vehicle that failed?
This particular vehicle, oh goodness, it's close to our mechanics on. He can answer that specifically, but it's probably close to 18, 20 years old. This particular vehicle.
And what's the life cycle of that piece of equipment?
It's usually around 20 years. This would probably be the next pumper that would be requesting a replacement on it. I can look at our capital plan, but probably about 2 or 3 years out from that.
This is a pumper engine. How many do we have?
That's correct. We have 4 actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. A lot of this, I can tell you, our trucks, we do really good preventative maintenance. We have a really comprehensive driver training program. So we're doing everything we can on our end to prevent any major, breaks or repairs that are needed. I can tell you one thing that really did a number on a lot of our apparatus, because I think it was last year or the year before I came and had to ask for some money from y'all as well. That 123 construction project was just brutal on the engines going back and forth. So now that that's done, hopefully that'll help. In addition to Station 1 being open and not having to come across town, hopefully that'll help a little bit as well.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
Chief, just a quick question. I see here that you said there was frame integrity problems. I'm no mechanical expert, but I do know that frame problems are bad. Does this pose any kind of safety issue for your crews to continue using this vehicle before the time comes up?
Yeah, Joe, good question. And that actually, yes, it does. And that's why we had to get it repaired. It actually failed state inspection, and that's how we became aware of that. So in order to pass inspection and allow us to even drive it, we had to get those repairs taken care of.
But does it pose future safety issues? I guess are you concerned about that? I guess is the question. Not
anymore. No. It was. They did a comprehensive job repairing the suspension in the chassis. So that's all been taken care of professionally, and it's passed the inspection since as a result.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this funds transfer request.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
I recommend we transfer $26,000 from FinCom Reserve to account 001-220-570-5243.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So, all right, I have a motion and a second to approve the transfer request from FinCom Reserve to account 001-220-570-5243. Any additional questions? Hearing none, we will go straight to a vote. Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kevin Bouquet?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Kevin Snyder?
Yes.
I am a yes, so that is unanimous. All right, thanks, Chief. You are all set.
Thank you
And
very much.
I hope everything stays in one piece.
Me too.
For the rest of the budget year.
Much appreciated. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
And the last one is a request for $25,000 miscellaneous account, and this is for insurances. So I think I sent you information that the agent had given me previously. So the main thing here is that the water treatment plant came on this year, which was an additional $10,000, and then the workers' comp audit that was done came back with an additional premium request of $15,000 after the audit.
Okay. Looking at the attachments I got.
Madam Chair?
I'm not seeing anything, but that's fine. Go ahead, Steve.
Mike, I'm just curious. So what did the audit encounter that they're charging additional premium? Was it additional staff? Overtime or?
Yeah, it's based on salaries. So there were two large increases. One, the water treatment plant. So for waterworks, the difference in the exposure was $189,201, and in school professional employees, $1,614,998.
So school professional, what was it? And what do you know the definition of that category?
School professional employees, that would be, all the teachers, administrators.
So how many were added?
It doesn't give a number. It just goes by the salary.
Right. So it'll give you an exposure, but so the salary increased by, you said $1 million?
$1,614,998.
And that's across the board that's an annual audit, correct?
It is. They do it every year. Yep. So this time of year, we report to them what is anticipated for salaries, and then they do an audit midway through the year to see where the salaries are ranging.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Mike, do you have the breakdown of the premium increase by the different classes? So the additional was the additional premium was I forget the number you just mentioned, but they should be able to break that down by how much was for the school class and then how much was for the waterworks.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that and see if I can find that.
Yeah, because the rate for the teachers should be pretty low.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see it on here, but I'm sure the agent could spell it out.
I think it's fine if you just get back to us on it, Mike. I don't think we
Okay.
need to hold this up for
Just
that.
curious.
Yep, no problem.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Zach.
Mike, why wouldn't this on the water department, does this not come out of retained earnings from the enterprise account?
No, well, they pay, they don't pay the direct insurance. I'll have to check on it, but I'm not sure what their exposure would be on this either.
So the overall policy of the town covers, it's one policy, covers everybody. So you don't have any breakdown in general for the water department? Should they pay, if they're, I'm just saying 1/10 of the premium, shouldn't 1/10 of that premium come out of retained earnings and transferred into the town budget?
Yeah, for it should. So they should pay the actual on that part. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this fund transfer.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Bill.
I recommend we transfer 25,000 from the income reserve to account 001940570.
I'll
Have a
second that.
second. All right, there is a motion and a second to approve the transfer request from the FinCom Reserve to account 001940570. Is there any additional questions before we vote?
I do have a
Hearing none.
question. Following up on what Zach said, if we were to say no to this, could it be reworked? Well, say no to it until we find out what's going on with the water and sewer department. Could this be reworked at a later date, or are we kind of stuck with this in the whole middle?
Well,
I mean,
if
we can table this till next week, but Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll double check on the water and sewer, anything, and let you know if there was any change. It would just close out to free cash if we don't use it.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Amy, I have a quick question. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Sure, Paula.
Now I don't understand, could we transfer the money from the water sewer reserves as opposed to the free cash reserves? Is that a possibility, or is that just not done that way?
What I was saying, I'll look and see if water and sewer paid for the extra increase in the insurance. And if they haven't and we have to charge them that, then we won't use the full reserve and it would just close back out.
Okay.
So it would just be part of the turnbacks.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, I have a motion and a second. And we will vote. Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kevin Bouquet,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Kevin Snyder.
Yes.
I too am a yes. So that is unanimous.
Thank you. So you haven't voted on any articles yet, so let's do an easy one.
Oh, great. I love an easy one.
Article 2, Chapter 90. So this would be the vote to accept the Chapter 90 money that we receive from the state. This year we're going to receive $551,445. One thing with Chapter 90, I know the MMA has been trying to get that increased. They've been doing $200 million a year since 2012. And if you took inflation into account, that $200 million is now $117 million. And then it gets distributed based on a formula, road miles, population, and employment in your town. And this year, our allotment actually went down 5,000. I think it probably has a lot to do with the fact that our population didn't go up a lot. So we probably got hurt in the formula that way. But Keith was saying, like in 1999, it was $23.97 a ton for bituminous concrete. Now it's $92 a ton. And who knows where it's going to go with the oil prices. But so, hopefully the MMA is successful in getting them to up it. But for right now, we're getting a little bit less than last year.
Mike, is it expected that the increase may go through in time for the coming year's budget? Or is this like they're looking at it, but they're going to be looking at it a month of Sundays from now?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if they'll do it. It's a MMA hope. One thing they are going to do this year, and I don't know why we haven't received it yet. They're supposed to be providing $100 million for pothole repair money. By the time they get it to us, it'll be too late. But last time they did something like that was back in the winter of 2015, and we ended up, I think, with almost $800,000 that year. So
wow.
We did $844,000 that year. So hopefully, when they do that, it's only based on road miles. They don't do it on population and employment. So hopefully, we do good in that and Keith gets some more money to repair the roads. That's one of the reasons I know in the past we always said, well, do we have to vote the dollar figure? Well, really not. You just vote to accept Chapter 90 funds because, like in this case, if all of a sudden they come up with $300,000 more, it's already been voted to accept any Chapter 90 funds.
Great. All right. Anybody have more questions about Chapter 90?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Zach.
Mike, I know Keith's not on, but with $500,000, how many miles of road can you actually pave? Do we know that? Just curious.
He would know the figure per mile.
I know.
I don't. Yeah, I don't have that, but
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the excise tax that we collect from the automobiles, in theory, isn't that? I know we don't spend a penny of it on road repair, but in theory, wasn't that what it was originally for road work when it was instituted?
I'm not sure. I never thought of that. I know the gas tax pays for the road repairs.
Any other questions on Chapter 90 funds? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 2 on the annual town meeting warrant.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
I recommend we approve Article 2 as written for the annual town meeting of June 7th, 2022.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it. We seem to be in a rhythm here, so I'll second it.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. I have a motion and a second to recommend Article 2 for the spring town meeting warrant. Any additional questions before we vote? Hearing none. Joe.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Paula.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Kevin Bouguet.
Yes.
Kevin Snyder.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
I am a yes. That is unanimous.
Did you want to do capital?
Sure.
Okay. Let me share my
Usually easy to do capital in the spring because we do most of our capital in the fall.
And you were presented the plan before, I think, but correct me if I'm wrong. So capital voted to recommend, if you look on the third column over, they voted to recommend $11,500 for work at Camp Edith Reed, $112,000 for 2 cruisers for the police department, $65,000 to the fire department for replace a staff car, and that's 80% out of ambulance and 20% out of capital. $19,000 for structural firefighting hose for the fire department. Turnout gear replacement, $14,000. That's 80-20 between ambulance and capital. And I just went too far. The school department, pumper replacement in the fire department, it's payment 5 of 5, $140,250 for that fire department pumper. The school department, $44,983 for a minibus replacement. The highway department, a Bobcat for $50,758 that can be used also for plowing. And then payments on vehicles, payment 5 of 5 on the Peterbilt, $36,000. Another Peterbilt dump truck, payment 2 of 5, $28,150, and a John Deere utility tractor, $34,300. And the bucket truck, payment 4 of 5, $53,400. Then water and sewer, a new medium dump truck out of sewer retained earnings, $90,000, and the Cobb Street sewer station, phase 3 pump and motor, 500,000. And the water department, pickup utility truck, it's 65,000 out of water retained earnings. And Cottage Street, water tank, replacement, they're gonna do an evaluation and a design, 185,000. So the total, capital request is $546,141. The ambulance reserve fund is 63,200. Sewer retained earnings 590,000 and water retained earnings 250,000.
So Mike, after we approve this, how much will be left in the capital budget or in the capital fund?
So right now in the capital fund, in capital, the starting balance was $699,744. And the balance at the end,
50-ish left.
the balance at the end will be $153,603.
All right. Does anyone have questions about the capital plan?
And that
I know
is
Frank's not with us, but what exactly is happening at the Cobb Street sewer station for $500,000? I'm just curious.
yeah, they have to replace the pumps and motors in there.
Okay.
And this is Article 8.
Any additional questions? Mike, do we need to indicate the different fund sources in the vote when we
No,
recommend the article?
no, you just have to vote to recommend to the capital improvement plan as presented.
Okay. I would entertain that motion to approve the capital improvement plan as presented.
Madam Chair,
Bill?
I recommend we approve the capital budget proposal in the amount of $1,449,341. If I don't need to break it down, I won't, but I can. I always thought we did.
All right.
You want to break it down by the funding sources, that's fine.
Yep. So total from capital would be $546,141. From ambulance reserve fund would be $63,200. From sewer retained earnings would be $590,000. From water retained earnings would be $250,000. Again, for a total of $1,449,341.
Second.
Awesome. I have a motion and a second to recommend Article 8, the fiscal year 23 capital plan. Is there any additional questions before we vote? Hearing none. Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kevin Bouguet,
Yes.
Kevin Snyder,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
I am a yes, and that is unanimous.
The next, there's a few zoning articles, and I believe the planning director is on and can introduce. There's a couple petition articles, and there's also articles submitted by the planning board. And Paul DiGiuseppe is on and can introduce them.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure. Hi, how's everyone doing tonight?
Fabulous.
Well, Chair, I don't know how you want to, if you want to take these in order in which they're shown, or I do see at least we invited both petitioners for the rezonings, and I do see Ann Brensley, who's representing. She's the potential developer for 47 Elm Street. If you wanted her to go first, or you just let me know what your preference is.
Well, I'm always in favor of letting our guests go first so that we can let them get back to their regularly scheduled lives. So that's completely fine.
Okay, and I guess before I turn it over to Ann, I'll just let you know that the planning board voted unanimously in support of this rezoning, which it's currently zoned. You'll know this site has been called the Reed and Barton Mill, where it's being rebranded. It's zoned industrial right now, but Ann was successful getting a ballot petition to get it on the June 7th town meeting for village commercial. So they supported it 6-0, so it was a unanimous vote. So Chair, I don't know if anyone has any questions for me before Ann gives her presentation.
So why don't we see
Madam
the
Chair?
presentation and, oh, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just curious, is there any comment from the abutters?
It broke up, but I think
Breaking
I
up
heard
really bad.
I heard him say it were comments from the abutters. So we did have a public meeting in early April. There were comments on this. There was largely just specific to potential development as it comes forward. At this point, the public is just being asked to rezone it to village commercial, but people did talk about as a project comes forward, we want to look closely at traffic, at excuse me. Sorry, my wife has a great tendency when I'm presenting to run the printer. So traffic, water quality issues, cleanup of the contamination at the site, noise potentially if there were commercial components to it. So things that really we can't address at this point until we have a specific project. But that was the overall gist of it. So those are things that we always look at with projects, and this will be no different, particularly because, this sits in the middle of a neighborhood. So we'll, be looking at all of those issues. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
All right, go ahead, Joe.
Paul, just quickly, can you summarize your opinion on the pros and cons of the zoning change?
Certainly, and I'm going to do my best to be, impartial about this. But this has been a project. I've been here almost 4 years, and the town has been working very closely on getting the site cleaned up. So, just a little bit of history on this site. It's been vacant for 10 years. There hasn't been any user there, so it has been sitting empty for 10 years. The most recent property owner filed bankruptcy in 2015. they went into receivership. So there has been nobody there. So we've done everything we can. You know, we have a lot of limitations without being the property owner. But we were able to do things like assess. We were able to get $160,000 in state grant funds to do assessments. We completed what they call a phase 1 assessment. And we're in the process of doing a phase 2 to try to determine what was in the ground. And fortunately, this site was never it wasn't a big contaminating site during its history. So what's popping up are things like solvents that, you know, we have been, you know, trying to assess, and then, you know, should Ann take over, she's going to be responsible for cleaning it up. We know from the community, we've had multiple meetings, 2 public events with the neighborhood, many more conversations, but people want to see the site cleaned up. They want the contamination removed. They want to see the buildings are dilapidated. They're falling apart. People want to see those removed. So I think this is a step in the right direction also, because if this remains industrial, you could get industrial development there potentially. It's what's allowed in the zoning. So this is technically a down zoning from industrial and for uses and even some of the intensity of the development. And I think from that perspective, this is also a positive, because village commercial will allow a development that more appropriately fits with that neighborhood. I think it's also where the market is. You know, in an area like this, especially with that view of the Rumford River, there's, you know, to be able to go to village commercial provides us with many more opportunities. They just don't build industrial on the rivers anymore like they did 100 years ago. And it doesn't seem like anyone really wants to see industrial here. We're trying to focus industrial up closer to 495 on the main roads. I think overall, I mean, again, I myself and a number of staff have put a lot of work into this, and, you know, we want to see something beautiful for the community happen here.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Paul, does this include both sides of Elm Street? I think there's like a couple of buildings on the one side and then a vacant lot on the other.
There's actually 3 parcels. There's the big one where you see the buildings, and that parcel actually extends across the pond. That's one parcel, and that's the one subject to the rezoning. There are 2 parking lots, one on Cross Street and one on Elm, that are also that were owned by the Reed and Barton Company. Ann will have to explain this. I think she's seeking ownership of those, but those are not subject to the rezoning. So those are zoned residential, by the way. The parking lots are zoned residential, R60, residential 60.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Paul, or do we want to let Ann give the presentation? All right, Ann, I think the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me tonight. Based on some of the questions that I heard, I'm actually not going to do a formal presentation, but more give you a sense of what we have in mind and where we are in the process, and then what we hope to do. And I definitely want conversation or questions, because you know, when you're putting something together, you think you have it right and you think it makes sense, and then you find out you picked the wrong color, or you did something fundamentally different that probably could just be addressed if you understood it earlier on. So the project that we have in mind is what we're calling the Riverworks project. And the concept is really this working community, the history behind the project itself, which is this space that used to be home to manufacturing sites and raw goods, and a site that has a long history of actually giving materials and products to the community. And so our vision is to have it be a village commercial type of project that fits, I think, right in the wheelhouse that Norton established village commercial for, where there would be a housing side of things, but also what we're calling the workshops, which are smaller retail, smaller community-based shops of sorts. And the feedback that we're getting right now, we had actually thought that there would be, based on initial feedback, that there would be a big interest in having us do kind of like a first floor, bakery and little shops, even specialty shops, a place where people could go to get more of the specialty goods, and then housing on top of that, which is a very traditional model that we're seeing. And it's a model that makes sense for this specific location, because once we are able to do all the remediation needed, this is going to be a beautiful site. You're going to have a structurally strong dam. You're going to have a clean water area. You're going to have hopefully a new sitting area for that's open to the public, so that people can enjoy the views of the water. And so we really like the concept of village commercial, having this apartments overlooking the water, and also making the price points for those apartments reasonable and specifically designed for young families, along with retirees who want to stay in Norton or stay in the surrounding area but can't find good housing. So I think Paul did a great job of kind of talking about where the project is right now, as far as, it's been dormant for 10 years. What we're looking to do is not take all the problems that exist on that site and make them our own, but rather kind of come in and take advantage of the fact that Norton has been very responsible in trying to make sure that, this doesn't become a huge issue financially for the town. And so we're going to pick up that baton, and we're going to start doing some planning and put a project there that we think turns something very negative, something that has probably eaten some town funds, into something that's generating revenue and generating jobs and generating taxes, which I think some people like. So I am very open to discussion or questions, but we are being very careful about not pigeonholing this project yet into specific number of units or specific layouts, just because we haven't talked directly to the abutters as far as what they want to see. And we want to make sure that we don't announce something and they hear it that way and not through us. So free for questions.
Have more questions?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Zach.
Ann, you keep saying we and us. I assume you're a developer or you work for a developer. Can you give us a little background? That's my first question. My second question is, as you know, and everybody knows, there's a whole host of issues with this site, primarily the contamination. And you say, well, we're going to take it, but we're not going to be fully responsible for it. You're kind of walking a fine line here. So I guess, to be honest with you, I'm more confused now than I was at the beginning of the presentation. So can we start from the beginning? You're a developer, how you came across this, what exactly are you looking to, I mean, I got what you want to put condos and village commercial, but what exactly, how does that all play out with the environmental issues? There's back taxes, there's, a host of issues there.
Yeah, so as mentioned, okay, so to take the first question, which is the most important, our company is Devco North America. We love problem locations. And what we do is we literally take projects just like this that have major issues in specific categories, whether it's remediation, whether it's legal issues. This project happens to have both, whether it's, a distress scenario, something where you kind of need the project to be shinier than it is before you can convince a bank, before you can convince investors, before you can pull the capital stack together to actually execute. And that's what we specialize in. So we have many stories, but one that I actually haven't brought up yet, but there was a project in Dorchester, and it was a auto repair shop. And they had kind of like in the middle, which, you know, if you're a developer, it's your worst case scenario, because you hope if there's any environmental issues, it's on the outskirts so you can figure it out. But in this situation, there was an environmental issue right in the midst of the property. And we just worked with the owner. We helped him develop the project as far as put a plan together and what he wanted to do. And then we oversaw the process of remediation. So this is a project where some of the commitment issues where we're not coming in and we're saying, hey, we're taking this on, is because we actually don't know at this moment in time exactly the level of issue. And we also have a lot of legal parameters with this project. This is not, you know, I always say that there's one specific problem spot in every project we work on. The problem spot in this specific project beyond the remediation is actually the legal side of it. We have to go to court in order to ever say that we're the owner, because we could say that we're the owner and somebody could come out of the woodwork and say, well, you know, Rita Barton went into liquidation. It's a legal nightmare. And so this is what we do. We like those legal nightmares, intimidate people. You cannot get a large, in my opinion, you could never get a large developer who does like an Avalon Bay to come here and do this project, because it just has too many issues. So at DevCo North America, we literally like the projects that they won't do. And we take them on and we fix everything. And then we bring in our team, our larger developer team to do the project with us. So this is not an easy site. Let me make that very clear. I'm very aware of the remediation issues. I'm probably more aware of both the financial side, the legal side, the remediation side to this project than anyone else, just because I've done so much research on it. And I would put it as a very, very difficult project. And it just happens to be the type of projects we like.
So touching on that, after tonight, assume we recommend this and it passes a town meeting and it's now zoned village commercial. Can you just outline a little bit of what's the next step for your company? Step 1, 2, 3. I know you got legal, I know you got environmental, but how do you move forward? And what does that timeline look like? Are we talking a decade? Are we talking a century?
Yeah. These are all great questions, by the way. So there are 3 paths we're taking that we almost have to take simultaneously: environmental, legal, and development. So if you can imagine all 3 of those, it's not just a matter of completing each task. It's a matter of literally having them all go together. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense, right? So the development side, we get approved. We don't do anything. We make no progress. People are going to be upset and they're going to say, what happened to the development? So we actually have to do all 3 in parallel. But the thing that we're doing right now, and the first thing that we have to do, is really understand it all. And what I mean by that is we're going to have to start the legal process. We're going to have to start. So just again, to hopefully prove how aware we are of the remediation task ahead of us, we're hiring a group to not do a phase 1, not do a phase 2, not do review samples for us. They're literally spending hours just putting the path forward together for us on the remediation, because we need that. We need an index before we can even get to the chapter. So we're going to be starting that pre-development now, which we're doing. We're in the process. We're going to be starting the legal, literally a lawsuit to ensure that we quiet title on this property. So there's never an issue for anybody that we're working on this and that we have ownership. And we'll also be working and engaging that group to get us that index. What are we really looking at as far as a full remediation path? And then we go to the next step, which is actually executing on some of this stuff. So the planning on this is intense. The planning is going to take me longer than I would say. It's going to be equal to the execution time. So I would say in the next 3 months will be for me to figure out exactly what it's going to take to make sure we have dotted every I and crossed every T. And then I would say it's going to take another 3 months to understand exactly the results of the work that we do. So once we start the remediation, as you can imagine, you're peeling something off, you're going to find more problems. We all know it. So it's almost going to take me another 3 months just to determine, what we thought was there. Is it there? And then it's going to take another 6 months of remediation. The legal system, I don't think you get anything done nowadays in 12 months or less. So I mark this as a 12 to 18 month process. That is, I tend to be a little conservative, and I'm even like, this is 12 to 18 months if we don't hit major snags.
So who are you working with within the town? Is Paul your primary contact?
Yeah.
How is that? Because there's really no owner to this property. It's in a court. I don't know. The town could own it because they got back taxes. It's such in limbo. So who are you? I mean, who you brought this to the planning board originally? How is that working out within the town manager? I don't even know who you're working with.
I know. How do you figure this out? I would say the wording you're going to hear over time is going to be me being a sponsor of the project, which is what I am right now, right? I'm sponsoring this Riverworks. Then it's going to move into I control this property, which is me taking a deed that is in litigation for just to quiet the title. So all I'm doing is getting a court system to say, yes, you have it, and nobody can come out of the woodwork and say it wasn't yours. And that's where I'm justifying that is in the money and what we're doing to this project that's obviously been abandoned. And then you'll hear me finally say I'm the owner. It's going to take a progression on that. Because it's not legally okay for me to say that I'm the owner, because I'm not. And it's not going to feel comfortable for me to say it, even if our company, which is for this, it's going to be a corporation that holds the deed. I'm not even going to say it until a judge hands me the paper and says, you're good to go and there's no issue. Because weird things happen in the world, and for us, this is something that we look at it, and we love projects like this because we turn it into a diamond, but right now it's just a piece of dirt, and it happens to be a dirty piece of dirt. So what we found is we have to be very careful so that we don't accidentally fix all of it, make it a diamond, and all of a sudden somebody says, hey, I like that diamond. It's ours.
So your business model is try to acquire the land at no cost and pick up some of the cleanup or whatever that may be to remediate it.
No, our business model is doing projects that nobody else understands, fixing them because we have such a strong institutional background. So when I go, I can raise capital with Avalon Bay. As far as we have the same models. If I showed you my modeling versus Avalon Bay, who's worth billions of dollars, you're not going to see a difference. Our numbers are just as strong. They're done just as right. We've done projects at the same size as Avalon Bay, but I do it at the beginning. I like the projects that have what you call hair on them, and they're not ready for a larger developer. And because of that, they'll sit for another 10 years. So whether that's a legal issue, whether it's somebody passed away, estate problems, whether it's contamination, location. I have one project we're working on. The town doesn't like the family. That's their problem. So we like anything that just needs somebody else to come and handle it. And in this case, the remediation people could do. The legal, you summed it perfectly when you were like, who owns this and what's happening with it? And how do you figure out who's who? So.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. The property is an eyesore, and anything there would be better than what it is today. Keep us in touch. That's all I got, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Ann. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm curious when you say we. I'm assuming this is probably some kind of private equity backing, and I'm not sure about the funding source. But is there an abandonment timeline? Like, I assume if it's, as been talked about at length, it's a high risk project, and there's going to be extensive investment before you start seeing like an NOI and operating income out of it. Is there a timeline or anything in place where it's the ROI is just not there? Is there a risk in terms of being able to flip it and turn it around in a reasonable time frame?
That's great. These are very good questions. So our capital is our own capital. We have partners that we bring in for every project that we do. So every project has a different team. This project includes a larger group that's, as long as I can show them that we have ownership, their background is, their balance sheet is, this is a small project for them. So as far as capital goes, we're fine. So that's the good news. The bad news is you're bringing up a very important point, which is when does kind of the cost and the timeline of those costs eat into the project so much that you can't even make it work on paper. I'll know that probably in the next 3 months. And that's part of why we needed, and we calculated we needed the village commercial, right? Because if we do this as a 3-family, we're never going to make those financials work. And I appreciate you asking that because you're understanding both, the cost of time and money and how that all works together. So then you'll understand why when we go to the town and ask for a specific project, it's all numbers for us. It's all, can we afford it? If this thing costs us $2 million in remediation, how much is that going to cost per unit? If we get 10 units, it's not going to work, right? So there is a point where this becomes too costly and it takes too long. But my expectation is that I'll know what a more concrete, predictable timeline, as good as any other project, in the next 3 months.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done enough NPV and IRR analyses in my data to know what's behind this. But thank you.
Yeah. I'll have to use you as a witness when I'm like, guys, I can't do this. I can't do it for 10 units. I can't do this project for, I'll come back to you and run the numbers and you guys can tell me. I think we're going to be able to do this. And I think we're going to be okay.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
Good evening, Ann. Couple questions. So I was on the presentation probably a month or so ago when you presented to all the abutters. And I guess my biggest concern is the vagueness. I understand you don't want to say, 4 retail units on the bottom and 100 apartments or whatever, but you're so vague that you're kind of painting an illusion of it may be this, but in reality, when it's done, it could be that. And so that concerns me a little bit. And I guess the second thing, getting past that, how big of a project are you guesstimating this to be? Is it a $10 million project? $50 million, $2 million? What are we envisioning?
So I don't think the vagueness is, I'm just being cautious because it has never served me well to fit a project in a box. Sometimes I'll say it's, and I'm just being honest, especially when I haven't talked to the abutters in a social setting or in some sort of open conversation setting. Because what I found is if the butters are okay, everybody else ends up being relatively okay when you're dealing with a project like this specifically, right? And if they're not okay in a project specifically like this, it can go the wrong way. When it makes financial sense that we do the project, when it, the town is excited for us to do the project, and then if the butters aren't, it could make all the sense in the world and still get held up. And as I think has been touched on, time is money for us. Time is going to matter. If this is going to take a much longer process or be uphill, it's difficult. So I appreciate that you're bringing out the vagueness, and I hate to say it, but I purposely did it. I'm trying to be sensitive to making sure that I have that Now, from a financial group, since I'm talking to a financial group, I'm estimating, and you can do the math on this, I'm estimating that the remediation is going to be around $1.5 to $2 million. That's what I'm estimating. If that is the case, you can break the numbers up any way you want, but I obviously can't have the remediation, which is just the ground money, equate to something that makes it impossible for me to rent to people for $1,400 a unit, right? So I think you could probably do the math, and I think you'll probably find that we're talking about a sizable project. We're not talking about a 20-unit residential project. I think you're talking about something larger than that, significantly larger than that. We wouldn't be going to village commercial if we weren't looking to maximize it. But I have to me, the constraints are not going to be the village commercial. It's going to be the community, and the abutters. So I think that's as politically correct as I get in my story. And maybe I didn't offer much more than to tell you to rely on your mathematical skills on working backwards at a $1.5 million budget, with additional costs that are associated with pre-development, because this is a complete zoning change, and with the village commercial zoning.
Chair, can I just
Thank you.
follow up with that?
Sure,
You're
go
doing
ahead.
the math.
Well, just as a different perspective too, it's actually, you don't want a rezoning tied to a specific project. It's actually illegal to do it. It's called contract zoning. A practical matter, here's an example. We had a case of Blue Star. Actually, just recently this happened, where you might remember back 2017, that area up along Leonard Street, north of 495, was rezoned to industrial. And a couple of the abutters were upset that the new proposal that went to planning board was different than what they showed in 2017. And the point I'm making here is sometimes when if she were to get that detailed, or even if the applicant, I don't know if the applicant's here for the other rezoning, shows a specific, the public might think that's what they're actually voting on. And we need to be really careful that that's not the case. And that, again, you're looking at whether or not the zoning district is appropriate for the area, and taking into account things like what's the current zoning.
So to that end, Paul, the current zoning for that property is commercial, or is it industrial?
It's industrial.
And that industrial zone is like smack dab in the middle of, I'm assuming, what is an R40 or R60 neighborhood.
R60. Mm-hmm. And we should also, we have to look back at this. When Reed and Barton was fully up and running, it was 170,000 square feet. The height probably would have been, roughly, certainly 2, maybe 3 stories. It had a big chimney. And I know at one point it had over 100 employees. I don't know if that was I don't know what the peak number of employees was. It might have been, around 100. But, we do need to remember that this was a fully functional mill site for 70, 80 years. So it's vacant now, but it wasn't. Well, it's not vacant. There's obviously there's a building there. So, but yeah, it's industrial.
Yeah, my estimates of the remediation did include demolition, which is its own storyline.
Sorry, did you say did or did not?
Well, unfortunately, the buildings did not include the demolition. So, it's a used car. We're gonna have to fix everything, but some things will surprise us for the good, I'm sure, and some things will be unexpected, I'm sure. But we love the location. We love the basic, layout of the land. We're not talking about something too complicated where it's like an L shape and some where putting it on paper is going to not work. I don't know. We love it.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
So this is actually for Paul again. So if we do what you say and divorce these two things, is there any risk to us going to town meeting and changing this to village commercial down the road? And if for whatever reason this project doesn't work out or whatever, what are the risks, if any, of this change?
Well, you always have to assume some risk. And I think in this, in looking at, if you do a trade-off of keeping it industrial versus village commercial, first of all, there are safeguards, right? This will go, anything that happens at this site is going to trigger a special permit. Which entails a higher level of review from the planning board. So there's going to be that. There are public hearings, planning board, whatever shape it looks like, whoever's on it, when this comes forward, they'll be responsible to, ensure a project that meets our bylaw and state laws. Trade-off, one thing that I think is a trade-off, if this remains industrial and she can't do the project she wants and walks away, I think that's a pretty bad trade-off, because we could be looking at how many more, what period of time before someone else comes along and wants the site. I don't know. I mean, it's a great question, Joe, and there's just so many unknown variables at this point. But I would say that, again, if this remained industrial and someone wanted to come along and do industrial, and they'd have to go through a special permit for it, but they would be certainly eligible to seek that.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm going with this is, if I don't see any good reason to keep it industrial based on a lot of the things that were said earlier, or agreeing with those things anyway. But if we were to change it to village commercial, I don't ever see it going back to industrial or anyone ever asking for that to happen, frankly. But there's nothing to stop us from, if there was someone who wanted to do the cleanup, changing it to R60 later on down the road, right? Go through the same process.
If someone wanted to do that, they could. Although chances are, anything you can do in R60, you could do in village commercial.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm not sure why someone would voluntarily do a significant downzoning of it. So
I'm not either. I'm just saying, there's nothing that says that, we change it to village commercial and it will forever be village commercial, and there's no way to change it.
Right. Exactly. And, down the road, 20 years ago, we changed our zoning paradigm. And who's to say we won't do that again sometime down the road? I don't have any plans to, but I think that's always a important consideration.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Just a question for Paul. So the property, I think we're all familiar with the one part of the property, which is where the building is or was. What about the other side of the water there? Is that developable? Is it not? It looks pretty wooded in that area, so I'm not sure if there's any designs on developing that portion of the property, or if anybody's even had conversations about it.
Yeah, we haven't had conversations with it. I know, looking at our assessor's map, it shows estimates that for having wetlands, although I'm not aware that any wetlands have ever been delineated. But I think, rest assured, since it's right on the Rumford River, there's probably a good likelihood of it. It's possible. I mean, I don't want to speak for Anna. Don't know that she's ever even gotten that far, but if that's rezoned, it's certainly possible that it could. Again, that wouldn't, no matter what it's zoned, you're still not developing in the wetland areas. But
I don't foresee us developing that, also because just the intricacies of the conservation there's that right now has a bunch of tenants in it that are furry and animals, and I have found that can end up being extremely expensive. And if they've been there, maybe they've gotten it through, adverse possession themselves. So we don't have plans at this moment in time to include any development on that side, except maybe a walkway, just so that people can get to the the water itself and sit out. But besides that, nothing.
Okay, thank you both.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Zach.
Paul, I'm no zoning expert. I would leave that to you. So how is this? This is all a residential area. And this is one building that's industrial zone. Is that the way I understand it?
Yes.
So how is this not spot zoning? And how is it not changing it to village commercial, this one parcel only, not spot zoning? Do the neighbors have a claim to take it down to court and say, no, you're spot zoning this?
I don't think so, because if they did it, the claim would have been 30, 40, 50 years ago when the property was zoned industrial. So this is a 20-acre parcel, which size does matter. But this has been, in fact, industrial for, I don't know when it was initially zoned industrial, but it's probably been 40, 50, 60 years. So you're just taking the same parcel and now rezoning it.
But I'm guessing that
zoning
building
would
was
really
there
be
pre-zoning, no? That parcel was there, that factory was there before zoning even existed.
The factory was, because the original building was built in the 1860s and then expanded out over the next 100 years. But yeah, and back in those days, it was very typical, especially, in the Northeast, to have mills on the rivers with the neighborhood right around it, right? Because back in those days, the mill workers, they heard the whistle, they knew it was time to walk in and go to their shift. But I'm not an attorney, but I'm not going to concern myself about spot zoning. Had this been all zoned R60 and then a proposal, that might be a different situation. But the fact that it's already an outlier and has been for decades, I think the threshold, my understanding in talking with town council, the threshold for spot zoning is extremely high. And I think you're bringing, a factor that would play into this is the proposed zoning is much more in line with the adjacent area than industrial is.
Thank you.
Does anyone have additional questions for Anne or for Paul? Hearing none. Mike, do you want us to vote on this one tonight, or were we just discussing this one tonight?
It's up to you. The select board did vote in support of this article.
So this is Article 16, correct?
That's what I'm looking at right now.
17.
17, yeah.
17, okay. That makes a big difference, because on this sheet, there's a difference in how people voted. So thank you for that. All right, we might as well knock this one off the list tonight as well. Everyone's here that needs to be here. I don't want to table this till next week and then make Ann come back in case there's more questions. So let us move ahead. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend Article 17 on the town meeting warrant.
Madam Chair,
Bill, go ahead.
I recommend I suppose we recommend Article 17 as presented to change the zoning of the 16.25 acres at the intersection of Elm and Cross Street from industrial to village commercial.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kevin Bouguet?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Kevin Snyder?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for coming and chatting with us tonight and answering our multitude of questions.
Anytime.
All right, Paul, what else do you have for us?
Well, we do have that Article 16. I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone is here from for the rezoning on Reservoir Mansfield. I was told he'd be coming, but I don't know. I don't see anyone that I recognize from that. So so Chair, if you want, I can go back to the zoning bylaw changes that were proposed by planning board.
Sure, that's fine.
Give them time. Okay, so I need to make sure we're going to Article 12, right? The table of the exciting world of zoning.
Paul, you know we love your planning board articles. They are the highlight of budget season.
I know, but they are important. I mean, I know this isn't, we're going through the charter, but let me just start off very quickly, and I'll just go through these quickly. The reason for these proposed changes to the bylaw are really there to try to promote economic development. So as the master plan was adopted last year, where one of the things it talked about was taking a number of initiatives to try to promote growth in appropriate, targeted industries in appropriate corridors. So we're in the process of trying to implement the master plan. Along with, we did a plan for West Main Street that is also very much on the ground, trying to identified recommendations to try to make our village center much more successful than it is. So out of that sprung a few relatively small changes that we just wanted to get made now in anticipation that we will be making bigger changes, in the next year or so to the zoning bylaws. So these are just, that initial, launch forward. So if you don't mind, I can share my screen so we can.
Sure.
Okay. So just taking this in order, one of the things that we wanted to do is we realized so what you're looking at here is a table that identifies the different dimensional requirements for each of our zoning districts. And so these are our 7 zoning districts, ranging from the least intensive, which is R80, all the way up to our most intensive, which is industrial. So our bylaw does something pretty wonky that most zoning bylaws don't do. Typically, when you talk about the minimum size of a lot that you can develop in a zoning district, typically zoning codes will strictly say it's X, it's 10,000 square feet or 20,000 square feet, regardless of the use, because you have other mechanisms to manage the development. But ours did this density escalation where if you went for each unit you added to a building, it added square footage to the overall minimum lot size. But the biggest thing that we were concerned about was this 7 units per building ultimately is a density cap. And I worked with the building commissioner and town council, and we've all were in agreement that that meant you can't have an apartment building with more than 7 units. Nowhere else did we ever talk about density but here. And with Reed and Barton and a couple other projects on their way, we thought, well, this is going to be a big, this needs to be a relief for it. It just allows a bit more flexibility, but you still have other restrictions in here. So it's not like a development is ever going to, have a maximum or a very high maximum in Norton, because you still have other standards that have to be met. And then one thing about development is, the more you build, the more parking you need, the bigger your stormwater area, and that developable area shrinks. So planning board just felt comfortable that we could make this work by just saying 3 or more units rather than cap it at 7, and let other standards kick in to try and make sure you have a project that's appropriate with what's around it. So that was that. That was that article. So that was Article 12. Now Article 13. I need to just scroll up to the top. So, as I mentioned, so there are other sections that have to change. So, but in our master plan and in that plan we did for West Main Street, it made recommendations to add uses to our definitions and our use table that are currently missing. Our use table identifies the uses that are allowed in which zoning district, but there are a lot of things that were missing from our code. And so again, we were just trying to narrow the discussion, the changes right now to some things that we were targeting. These definitions that you see, the top 3, come right out of the plan that we did for West Main Street. These are artisanal types of uses, things like artisan food and beverage. That could be a microbrewery. Think about something like Bog Iron. We just want to make sure we clearly delineate those uses as allowed in the code versus, well, this is the closest category we can get. And so, so these are examples of uses that are small scale, things that are more people centric. But then we also were looking at uses for life sciences, things like pharmaceutical companies, biomed, uses like that we just want to do an initial addition to our zoning regs to make sure we clearly see that it's allowed and where they're allowed. So we created these definitions, and then we went into this other exciting thing called use tables, and we added uses that were either clear gaps, like we didn't have medical, dental offices and clinics in there, which is a very standard use to have, but we didn't have it. To uses like the ones you just saw, those artisanal uses, we wanted to add those and identify where they're allowed. So you can see here where the underline is. These are all fairly minor scale types of uses, but again, could be great uses in a place like 123 or 140. Then finally the other aspect that we wanted to really take a look at, our master plan talks quite a bit about promoting the life sciences, and that's the big ticket item right now for communities. I mean, it's one of the most successful industries in all of Massachusetts. In fact, the Boston metro area has the largest concentration of life science companies in the country, and but they're expanding outward. Many companies can't afford to build in Cambridge, so they're coming. We have Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, but other companies have come down this way. Thermo Fisher moved to Plainville. Moderna, I think, went to Norwood. Mansfield has a bioincubator site. along with some other bio companies, but we're just trying to identify where the more significant development like this would go. So you would see here, for example, where it's manufacturing and assembly of companies associated in life sciences, we would allow as of right in industrial and by special permit in commercial. And we're just trying to target areas where we have appropriate infrastructure. They're areas that aren't in the middle of neighborhoods. So these areas would be, again, largely up around 495. So again, it's just trying to open up our zoning code to be more permissive about these uses. And honestly, any life science company that comes in, even in industrial, it's going to trigger a special permit approval. Are there any questions at this point? I hope I'm not boring you to death.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Bill.
So Paul, going back to that last chart and now jumping back to the last article, you're basically saying that in the village commercial, I can have a life science project.
No, not in village commercial. No, not only in commercial, not village commercial. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I was like, no, it's commercial.
VC is commercial and VCC is village commercial. How are we?
Now, if you look to the far right at the top, you'll see industrial, right? That's I. C is commercial.
Yeah.
VC, which is 2 over from that, that's village commercial. That's the zoning that was subject to it. But you'll see under village commercial, that's a no. We do not want life sciences in village commercial. That would be an inappropriate use.
What is VC?
That's the village commercial district that we were just talking about with Elm Street. But even though that district is typically applied on 123 or 140, the area where they are, we just felt like it's not appropriate there. It's, most of those areas don't even have sewer to them. The commercial district where it's applied in town tends to be a little bit farther away from neighborhoods and oftentimes has sewer running are connected to it or serving them.
But again, unless I'm missing something, which is quite possible, I'm looking at the chart on my screen. I have R80, no. R60, no. R40, no. VC, special permit.
What are you
For
looking?
the research technical laboratories, including life sciences. The first line on the screen. It says it's allowed by special permit.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. The only change we made there, we didn't change the special permit. That was already there. The only thing we added was under research, to the left in the definition was research and technical labs. We just wanted to specify that it was including life science research.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is, so we're defining it better, which is great. But if I jump back to the last proposal at the Reed and Barton, it's village commercial, and this says special permit. So it may not be condos and little bake shops or apartments and bake shops. It could be a life science, which is the big thing in Massachusetts. That's the only thing I'm bringing up.
Yeah, it could be research.
Yeah. So
it's not necessarily the manufacturing. It's not the manufacturing of it. It wouldn't be the heavy manufacturing. This would just be more of the research end of it, which that was already there. So yes, Bill, you are correct that if it fell under research, then it could anywhere in village commercial today.
Thanks, Paul.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
sorry, I was not understanding you, Bill. My fault.
No problem, Paul. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, I guess I'll show you the last article. Okay, so let me just make sure. This is now Article 14. This is one of the things we recognized a while back was we have a bylaw provision it's there to promote affordable housing. And it was established back 20 years ago, or 2003, back when we had a very low percentage of our housing that was subsidized housing. So in the state, I don't know if you all are aware of this, something called the 40B process, 40B projects. So what the state says is, if you are at 10% if 10% of your housing is a subsidized housing for low income, you would not have to automatically accept any new 40B project that comes forward. But only up until last year did we actually ever get above 10%. So when this was written, this article was back when we were about 3% 20 years ago. But last year we actually went over. We're at 11% now with a couple new 40B projects that were approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we saw this, when we were working on some projects in the past, the building commissioner and I were realizing that there was a provision in here that says that if you're constructing 6 or more multifamily units, you then have to provide 10% of the units to be affordable. So, if you're proposing a 6-unit apartment complex, 5 of them can be market rate and the other one has to be affordable. There's a whole host of challenges with that, because just as Ann was talking about with making the numbers work, it's the same thing here. Because with affordable housing, if you are requiring it, that means you have to take in less income, less revenue on the one unit, but you have to pay your debt back to your creditors when you take out a loan to construct a building. And, that can add, one affordable unit can add tens of thousands of dollars to the other units on a site. And what the purpose of this is to say that this bylaw provision is not required if the town is at or above 10% of the subsidized housing inventory. Because again, this can be very detrimental. I should point out too, in my research, I looked back over the 20 years of data and only found twice where this bylaw has been applied. And it's resulted in 6 units approved as affordable and only 2 have ever been built. So it's not a real effective tool, but what has been is the 40B process, which has been the great majority of our affordable housing, in addition to the housing authority itself. So we just felt as though this is an appropriate fix at this time. There's other ways. In fact, we're going to be working with our regional planning agency, SERPID, to conduct what they call a housing production plan, which is a much more comprehensive way of looking at how do we provide different types of housing, including affordable housing. So it should give us some new and improved tools, in the next couple of years. But we just believe that this would be right now an appropriate change to make, and then have a more comprehensive look. Again, that's something our master plan talked about doing, is taking a much broader look at how we can provide different types of housing for different, types of family structures, different, for aging in place and all of that, and different income levels. So that's my presentation. Sorry, that got a little long-winded. And if anyone has any questions.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just drawing, Paul, I like the adding the life sciences simply because having worked in life sciences a little bit, I think you mentioned it, from a square footage perspective in the project we looked at on Elm Street, the rent per square foot on a life sciences build out would in theory probably drive a smaller footprint with the same kind of operating incomes for a developer. So you weigh the cost of a 70 unit, apartments or a quarter of the footprint, but it's a life sciences at quadruple the rent. So I think that, all things talked about tonight, that's just something that everybody to take away from is that and having a little experience in the space that Metro West and Cambridge and all the hot spots for life sciences, the price is just through the roof. And as it continues to grow, they're looking, South Shore, South Coast, life sciences is looking, the industry is still hot and the rent per square foot is high.
Right.
So I think it's from a financial perspective and growing the tax base and things, it's a financially sound, segment to be in.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And one point I should have made earlier is one of the big reasons for this too is we're trying to do what we can on my end in economic development to help get, bigger taxpayers. And there's probably no bigger taxpayer than a life science company, because not only do you get the building, you get the equipment that you assess with your property taxes. And, again, Alnylam, I know they have a TIF. I don't know if they're the number one taxpayer, but if they're not, they're right up there. So, I'm trying to work to get development to come in again to the right areas to partly to bring in jobs, but also to look at how we can get more commercial property taxes. And life sciences is a big one, and it's a hot trend, and it's all the data I read says it's going to be that way for a while longer. And we're trying to also support Wheaton College that has a life science program, and they have a social impact group that's working with them, trying to help grow the life sciences at the school, but also to help ensure that their students can find jobs in the field. So, we combine that with our goals of trying to get life science companies to town. We're trying to build a web of a network of people and organizations to try to accomplish both attracting companies and the job seekers, and helping our local job seekers find good paying jobs in life sciences.
All right. I am going to apologize because Zoom decided I didn't need to be in the meeting anymore and kicked me out. So I missed a little bit of that, but that's okay. I know we covered Article 12. I think we covered Article 13.
Yes. And 14.
And 14. So, go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to let you know that the select board voted 5-0 in favor of these three articles to recommend them.
See that? I see the planning board also voted unanimously to recommend them.
Correct. And they were the ones that initiated it first. But yes, they voted 6-0.
All right. With that all in mind, I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 12.
Madam Chair,
Bill?
I recommend we approve Article 12 as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
So, any other questions or conversation? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. Kevin Bouguet.
Yes.
Bill Rotundi.
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kevin Snyder,
Yes.
Steve. Steve Evans. All right, we've lost Steve. I too am a yes. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor. Hey, we still have a quorum. Let's keep going.
Bonnie, I did say yes. I'm not sure. I'm cutting it out.
Sorry, Wi-Fi in town's been terrible today. Everybody's having problems. All right, I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 13 as written.
Madam Chair,
Bill,
I recommend we approve Article 13 as presented.
Second up too.
Second.
all right, I have a motion and a second. Any other conversation before we vote? Hearing none. Kevin Bouguet.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Kevin Snyder.
Yes.
Steve Evans.
Yes.
And I too am a yes. So that is unanimous. All right. And just to round this out for Paul, I would entertain a motion to recommend Article 14.
Madam Chair,
Bill.
I recommend we approve Article 14 as presented.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any final questions? Hearing none, we will vote. Kevin Bouguet.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Kevin Snyder.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
And I also am a yes. That is also unanimous.
Did you, Amy, did you have just 7 all night, or was there 8 earlier?
There was 8. Paula dropped.
Okay.
She sent me a text and said she got called for a work emergency and had to go.
Thank you.
No problem.
And I want to thank Paul for making sure that first article lasted long enough for me to get in my car and drive home to get back on again and listen in the car on the way home.
My apologies to you all to have
Good
to
job.
stop me doing that. We have one more.
We do.
What's the other one?
Article 16.
Oh, okay. This is the petition, the other petition?
Yes.
Okay.
And he is, I don't think anyone, he had emailed me acknowledging he had received the agenda. So anyway, so this was an article to propose rezoning an area just south of the reservoir, in that area between Mansfield Ave, that triangular area between Mansfield Ave and Reservoir Street. So this was presented to the planning board, and so this is currently zoned R60, this one parcel. It's actually not, it fronts Reservoir, not Mansfield Ave, but they were asking for, the extension of Village Commercial, which is on the Mansfield side. They wanted to extend it to this parcel here. And the planning board recommended against it unanimously. So when they took the vote to see if we should change it to Village Commercial, the vote was 0-6. A number of concerns were identified. Many abutters came out, but the planning board, one of the things that they mentioned was that Village Commercial is largely applied along 123 and 140, and it fronts the major roadway. largely these are smaller parcels too, but we don't typically put village commercial on a local residential street like what this is being proposed to do. Again, this is kind of in the opposite direction of the conversation we were having with Reed on the Reed and Barton site. This is an upzoning. There were concerns by the neighborhood, a number of concerns, including traffic impacts. The applicant is proposing to extend sewer to this site in order to get enough development to make their project feasible. That again, village commercial can do things that are, that we were just going through the list, that there's, more uses that you can do out of village commercial than you can in R60. So the neighborhood was concerned about that. I should say too, with sewer, there was concern about the cost of people who would have to connect to this sewer if they extended it from the existing line on Reservoir Street around Elm out to this property. So anyway, the planning board was just not supportive of it. I don't know if you all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
Paul, I've got Google Maps up. I'm just trying to make sure I know this spot you're talking about. This is right near Mass Gas off of 140, right?
Right across the street from it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Zach.
I don't know how anybody else feels about this, but if you have a petition, a citizen's petition, and the citizen doesn't come before the board, for me anyway, no matter what it was, it's an automatic no.
Well,
I gotta be honest, Zach. I'm still annoyed. I sat through that liquor store presentation like 3 different times, and then you didn't show up to move his article. So I'm with you.
They did present to the planning board. Again, they were invited a couple of weeks ago, and then I sent a reminder with the agenda tonight. So Ann was here, so I sent it to both parties with both petitions.
I'm
All
sorry.
right. I guess the question. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Madam Chair. I just want to make sure I'm clear with what you said, Paul. So in this proposal, the access would actually be from Reservoir Street, not from 140?
So this is complicated. So again, there are conceptual plans that we've seen, and again, as I mentioned before, you don't vote on zoning based on plans.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify what you.
No, they would have to, and they would like to get access through their properties to get to Mansfield. And they can, but it's not that simple because there's an extensive wetland system on the Mansfield side of it. It's continuous, large amounts. I mean, this area they've done their wetland studies. There's a lot of wetlands on the 2 or maybe all 3 parcels. Again, it's possible. It won't be easy. But they would have to show some access onto Reservoir, and that again was we can't ultimately make that, we can't look at it as a plan, but the board felt that R60 would be the most appropriate district, since it's that, and that's what the rest of the neighborhood on Reservoir is.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to move the question?
I guess the question I have is, do we want to move this question tonight, Zach, or do we want to give the petitioner one more opportunity to come next Monday?
That's at the pleasure of the chair.
I'm getting shaking heads from different people.
Yeah,
I think we go to the.
My mind's already made up.
I'm getting the impression that people feel like you arrive when you're invited to arrive, or you do not arrive at all. All right, I'm okay with that. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend, and just for everyone, we have to move to recommend the article and then vote no if we don't want to recommend the article. That's how it works.
Madam Chair,
Bill,
I recommend we move Article 16 as presented.
all
Second
right,
that.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? No? Okay. We will vote. Kevin Bouguet,
No.
Bill,
No.
Joe Parker,
No.
Zach,
No.
Kevin Snyder,
No.
Steve,
I'm going to abstain. I don't think we did enough to get them here.
okay. And I am also a no. So that was 6. That was no. Affirmative, 6 negative, 1 abstention. So Paul, I'll tell you what, if the petitioner reaches out to you that they missed tonight for whatever reason, get them back on our agenda for next week and we can reconsider this question.
Okay.
All right? Thanks.
Oh, they got lucky.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul, you too.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, just a couple more things on the financial discussion. We received a new cherry sheet. So putting those numbers in, it's a little over 96,000 to the good between increase in revenue and decrease in expenses on the state assessments. So tomorrow I should be finishing up a budget that I'll be bringing to the selectmen on Wednesday, showing what cuts I think we have to make on the town side. What we're looking at is trying to get to a 2% increase in town and school. Because if you look on the estimated revenues and expenditure sheet, if we put in what was requested, would be shot $1,704,805. So working on some suggested cuts that I'll send to you when I send them to the select board, and next week hopefully we can talk on those. And you also have a list of articles, an article list for a special town meeting.
Oh.
And we'll be working on that warrant. So
Mike, that's a list of them, right? We don't have the descriptions yet.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we're working on that and have town council reviewing, and we'll get back to you with the draft warrant. That's all I have. And Amy, I think you may have received some suggested agendas for future meetings, and you can check those and see if that looks okay when you get a chance.
I will look for those. I am not seeing those.
All right. If not, I'll forward those to you tomorrow.
Okay. Are we still thinking we're good on a once a week cadence, Mike? We don't need to start meeting on Wednesdays also?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I don't think so. We got time.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, having town meeting in June gives us all kinds of time when we start in February. All right, I received one set of minutes, but I have not even looked at it yet. So we will add minutes to next week's meeting, and I will get them out to you tomorrow or the next day for review so that we have plenty of time to read them before we meet again. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to discuss before we adjourn for the evening?
Yep, it's election day.
That's right. It is election day this Saturday, Norton Middle School, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Please come and vote for your favorite candidate.
That's right. That's right. And we are one Norton, and we need to be respectful and kind to one another and be acceptable of who wins and who loses. Period. Because
thank you, Peter.
We don't want to be divided, and we are one Norton.
All right. Well, if Mike doesn't have anything else, oh, go ahead, Bill.
So on your last topic, minutes.
Minutes, yes.
You said you got one, and we're missing like a dozen. What is the person going out on leave the one doing our minutes? No. So why is this so painful?
Well, I've given feedback now twice on the minutes, on the format they need to be in. So they are getting redone. We're waiting, but we are very much out of compliance.
I'm not even worried about compliance at this point. It's like, you know, you can send them, but, you know.
I know. It's hard to approve minutes that happened so long ago you don't even remember what the meeting was about.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
So it is, I mean, for those of us who manage departments and all that kind of happy stuff in our day job, you know, why can't via Mike, why can't this person, if it's a town employee, just be told, meeting happens on a Monday, we expect the minutes completed by a Thursday, so then we can submit it for the next Monday. This isn't that difficult. It really isn't. And it's unacceptable that we're doing this time and time again.
Mike, is there anything that we can do about this?
Yep, I'll reach out to her, and if you could send me what you have for minutes that you're looking to be amended.
Sure.
So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the format was kind of all over the place as far as like it had like guest speakers mixed in with board members. So it looked like Joe Baeta was a member of the finance committee and Brian Clark and Sean Simmons were all members of the finance committee. It was just very confusing.
Yeah, send me those so I can go over that with her and tell her about the timeline.
Okay, I will send it over. Vote.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Zach.
the last posted minutes, just looking at the town website, were 4/21/21. So I'm not sure how many meetings we've had since then, but.
Oh, like all of them for fall town meeting.
And some from last year too, I believe.
Some from last spring. All of the ones from
Last
this
fall.
spring since February. Yeah. Maybe a special thrown in there somewhere because, you know, that's how we roll.
I want to say that when we got the original copies, there were actually minutes in there that I was not yet a member of FinCom. So.
And we didn't approve those because they were not right. We will continue to try solving this problem.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
No problem. That's why I'm here.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any other questions or conversation before we vote?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Zach, you are between me and an adult beverage and my pajamas, so make it.
I just want to say, should Mr. Snyder be successful this weekend, I want to thank him for joining us on this committee. That's all. I figured that would be
All right. Well, that is a lovely sentiment, Zach. And if he is successful, we will have him back for a little congratulatory session beginning of the meeting.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Thanks, Zach, and thanks everyone.
Good luck,
Appreciate
Kevin.
it. Thank you.
And the continuation of FunCom.
Yes. Oh, thank you for saying that, because that just reminded me that Sherry Cohen has asked if we are available to meet with them, with the select board and the school committee, in another super FunCom joint meeting on Monday, June 13th, which would be the Monday after town meeting.
Yes.
Sure.
I said it's far enough out. If people can make it, they can make it, and if they can't, they can't.
I think I speak
So
for
I
everyone
figured-
here. I think I speak for everyone here when I say yes, that you all will do that on June.
Thanks, Kevin.
Is it
Unless
gonna-
someone has some major objection, I will confirm our attendance at their party. All right, fabulous. There is a motion and a second to adjourn. Anything else? Hearing nothing, we can vote. Kevin Bouguet,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
also still here. Steve,
Yes. Right.
good night. And I too am a yes. It's unanimous. Have a lovely evening, everyone. We will talk again next week. Thank you very much.
I hope you all have a wonderful night, everybody.